करें शुरू फिर
हाँ यार
रेडी हैं
हाँ all right. Born ready.
You've been in Ireland for a while, but I want to start where you come from.
I was born in a city which is on the north side of India. Not many people that come out of engineering college are actually engineers. And I like those people who kind of take that risk to go slightly sideways rather than following the
break the stereotyping.
break the stereotype.
Okay, how was it in Mysore and then what happened after?
Cost of living
Punjabis
was-
are Punjabis.
there were
put
no
it that
Punjabis,
way.
unfortunately. Like there was no jeep traveling in the city
Exactly,
campus, and
exactly.
I think I went for the first job, TCS, which is like the what do you call it, the bread and butter of all the engineers in India. This is like 2008. There's financial crisis, and I entered into a financial service product called TCS Bank. I wanted a bike when I was in 11th because everyone wanted a bike. Because girls loved guys who were having a bike.
So it's all for the girls.
It was all for the girls. Right? At that time, right, there was nothing else.
You get the bike?
I got a scooter.
Scooter. So you
it's
get
nice.
to impress more girls with scooter or less?
It was okay. I think I kind of surrendered to the fact that
That's another way of looking into, right? Who's the boss here? Is
Yeah.
that the management guys or is that the engineer?
It's the other way around now. To be honest, I didn't know Ireland existed on the map.
So if I summarize your decision making process, which is really helpful to people who are considering moving to Ireland or going abroad from India to study, is so you graduated.
I graduated 2012.
And where does that take you after?
Yeah, so, and the reason why I was hired, first of all, was because I had this Indian roots. We talked about the roots as well.
But that's very good point, Nipun, that the roots and your background help you in some shape to land your first job in Ireland.
Thinking about Smile Genius, I think 2019, the vertical that we are focusing is the orthodontics side. Physical impression, the mold of your teeth. And in the tissue, there would be a note saying, please align. Align means straighten your teeth.
Yeah.
And that's your prescription.
Where you started and where you are at this point. Your go-to-market strategy is to...
See, my wife is a dentist, right? And the reason I was able to do a startup was because of her.
Wives are always there.
Same.
Always.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We got our brownie points today.
Yes, absolutely. Both of us.
Yeah.
For first-time founders, what advice would you give it to them from your personal experience?
Startup is a different school altogether, and you don't need to be an MBA to start a startup.
And my last question, what do you think of the Indian market? करें शुरू फिर
हाँ यार
रेडी हैं
हाँ all right. Born ready.
Good. Hello Nipun.
Hi Kamal.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well as well. Welcome to the Cam MJ show.
Thank you. Thanks for calling me.
I love your sunglasses.
Thanks.
Or I would say your glasses.
I think you're not the first one. It was an experimental glasses that I bought. This frames are from India.
Okay.
But I've heard it was brave of me to buy a different colored glass rather than the standard black ones. But yeah, thanks for that.
It stand out. I ordered the pillows match with your glasses color.
Yeah, I can see that. I'll hold it closer to me. Yeah.
Exactly. So Nipun, you've been in Ireland for a while. But I want to start where you come from. So let's talk about your route first. I want to get your story before coming to Ireland, and then we'll talk about the routes, what you've been doing. I know you have a very ambitious startup.
Yeah, no, sure. I'll keep this aside first.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, I originally, as you know, from India, I was born in a city called Dehradun, which is on the north side of India. I think many people would know it. It wasn't on the map until it became a capital and it became a tourist spot. A lot of people think that it's a hill station, whereas Dehradun is not a hill station. It's the plains and the valley, but the hill station is Mussoorie and all that. So I was born there, born into a Punjabi family. Originally, my grandparents were they migrated from Pakistan, so settled in India, and so that's how my kind of the background had been. I don't know anything about the Punjabi language. I'm kind of the diluted version of Punjabi, and most of the North Indian Delhiish type of Punjabi. They say they are Punjabi just to be part of the group, but they don't know anything about.
We had this conversation. I remember when we had coffee, right?
Yeah.
That the fourth generation of Irish in America call themselves we are Irish, but they are kind of American. So I know a lot of people who live in Delhi have
Yep.
roots from Punjab. They call themselves Punjabi, but they are from Delhi. So let's call you the hybrid Punjabi version.
It's yeah, and I think if you ask my wife, she will tell me that they call it I'm the Nakli Punjabi. So I think people expect a lot if you're Punjabi that you'll be eating non-veg, drinking a lot, be tall, or that well built, and all that standard things coming as a package being a Punjabi,
Yeah.
and I was none of them. So I was born into a family, and kind of education was a high priority. If I think a lot of people know about Dehradun, it's known for schools. So that pressure came as a byproduct of being born in Dehradun, right? I still remember I think when I was in eighth or ninth, that's when it became like state as in Uttarakhand, separated from this UP. And at that time, we realized how important the city was. Um, I didn't know. I always used to say I'm Punjabi, right? I didn't actually know. I still don't know what Punjabi means. I know it what it means, but if you are explaining it to someone, they assume that you should be wearing a turban and speaking a language and this and that, and it's slightly different. And I think we have made our own kind of definition of Punjabi, though. If you belong to a Punjab state, you are Punjabi, or if you're speaking that language and a culture, you don't have to be a Sikh
Yeah.
to I think that has been, I think you may have
I mean,
felt in
every
it.
every
Yeah.
community, or I would say every uh, corner in India has some sort of stereotype.
Yep.
So without understanding in detail, what a Punjabi is, there are some things being
Yeah.
associated, and turban is, of course, the one
Mm.
element of that.
So I think it started from there, and I think from there on, I think so. I finished my school, and obviously, I think everyone wants to prepare for engineering and medical or engineering. My sister, elder sister, took commerce, so I was under very much pressure to take science. But then it was kind of got into engineering, did not crack the IIT, but then I said I shouldn't be dropping. And because the reason why I'm telling you about the partition of the separation of the state, a lot of seats in India, as you know, are reserved based on the state you belong to, domicile. Because we were a different state, we did not have any seats in UP. We were not from Delhi. If you're not getting a national ranking, you're not getting anything in the colleges. So we were kind of, I was saying, who are we? Or there was an identity crisis at that time,
Yeah.
and we had only one good college in. There's a place called Pantnagar, which is closer to Nainital in Uttarakhand. So that was the only university, and it was predominantly an agricultural university. So it was kind of promoting farming, agriculture, and all that. And I said, yeah, I don't want to. Like, it's a very nice college, right? That I think you just go where you're meant to go. And I said, I should drop a year, or let's join something. And then I gave few other exams as well. Then I got a college in Mysore. So that was my first time stepping out of Dehradun, and 2,500 kilometers away from my hometown. And it was a big shock to my family, to my mom especially.
Yeah. How
Uh,
old were you that time?
I think I was 18, right? It's
18.
typical age, right?
In India, we have a lot of entrance exams. IIT have their own process, own exams. Then CET. Then we have JEE.
Yeah.
I mean, the education system is so complex and so, I would say, wide that there is exams to get into different
Yeah.
sectors and different career ladders. Like in Ireland, of course, a small country, you do CAO and then you just go and get a university based on
Yeah.
that. It's one system run the whole country, but in India there are just so many of
Yeah.
those. If you don't go through one, let's say you didn't go through IIT, you have few other options to go and explore.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. And I because I did both. So before I came to Ireland, I think now I'll prefer the Irish style, or let's say the non-Indian style. I think the Indian one, I think more people who have gone through the system, they can only look back and comment on it. If you haven't gone through the system, I think there's no point in commenting that.
Yeah.
But I think it's more like a factory of, you have to work hard to get into a factory, and then you're not happy in the factory, and then you produce a product that wasn't made in that factory, and you become a YouTuber, or you become you do MBAs, and you become a medical student or a journalist. Like so many friends that I know of, like obviously a high proportion of them are still engineers. They're not engineers, but they are in tech firms, right? Not many people that come out of engineering college are actually engineers.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of them are in managerial positions and all that. Good few of them obviously did MBAs and all that, but the ones that I like the most, they've gone into artistic, ventures. One of my friends, not from my college but a different college, but from my school, she is into creative side of things. So she's heading the Indian division of Mobi Films. Do you know? It's like
Yeah.
Netflix. So she's the creative director over there. So I think that's the kind of inspiration, right? And I like those people who kind of take that risk to go slightly
Yeah, yeah.
sideways rather than following the herd.
Break the stereotyping.
Break the stereotype as well.
Absolutely.
I am an example of stereotype, but I shouldn't. But I like the other side.
but
Yeah,
but a lot of us are at that time of that era. It was very straightforward path. There wasn't enough information
yeah.
for us to explore. Here are 3 or 4 different exams, the state you live in or the nearby states, and that's the options you got, right?
Mhm.
Going abroad, studying in MIT, then Oxford, were also very much an early stages that time. The information wasn't there. It was all very much,
Mm.
I would say, study within India.
Yeah, yeah,
But now it is changing so much, right?
yeah.
People consider Indian universities and abroad universities simultaneously, right? It wasn't like that before.
Mm,
So
mm.
okay, how was it in Mysore, and then what happened after?
No, I think Mysore was good. So it was the first time. So although I like South, if not many people know about the southern states, especially Karnataka, people speak English quite a lot. It's a common language after their Kannada or the other coastal languages. Uh, English is spoken quite a lot. Broken English may not be the perfect name, but it is spoken. So I got an exposure of speaking side of the English. I knew how to read, write, verbally speaking, but I wasn't able to communicate that well. So I think that was my first venture into communications, which was one of the learnings that I had that I still carry as well. And I think it was a different state. Food was different. I loved people over there. Like they were very much like if you look at northern side of India, like it's very much flamboyant and it's a different. They're not on grounded people, at least the students, right? And I've been part of that system. Going over there, like people were so simple, right? There was no kind of show off of things, and so I think that was something that I really liked. The cost of living
Punjabis
was
are Punjabis.
there
Let's
were
put
no
it that
Punjabis,
way.
unfortunately. Like there was no jeep traveling in the city
Exactly,
campus, and
exactly.
but it was different. And I think people were very much grounded. And I think food was different. I started liking the food. The cost of living was very low, and I think that helped me while I was there. And I think I made some good friends. There were a lot of North Indians and South Indians, and you kind of lean towards people from your culture. So because you want to talk in
we,
Hindi,
we
and
still do same
we
here.
still do, right? So we are having that chat just now. But I think it's more like it's like a magnetic thing that you lean towards, you know. And it was like I wanted to speak in my mother tongue, like it was Hindi, right? And I was bored of speaking in English or limited speaking with other people. And I think that's where you build, bonds and other thing. And then we taught all the people how to speak in Hindi, right? So
Yeah.
but I think that was fun. And then like 4 years into engineering, got placement like everyone else. Didn't know whether I can push hard for the placement or not. And I think I went for the first job, TCS, which is like the what do you call it, the bread and butter of all the engineers in India. So I went for that, and then I applied for other jobs as well afterwards. But then once you have tasted a confirmation and a salary package, it's you become lazy and you don't want to try too hard. And I think I knew that I wanted to do something on the business side anyways afterwards because I didn't like engineering. Yeah, I said I just went with it. I said let's get a job and get some experience.
What was your first job in TCS?
So I joined at the best time that could the best of the career moves was to join TCS. It was 2007 when I graduated my engineering. So did my training. So they do wonderful training, one of the best trainings. So I think TCS and Infosys, they're really good at kind of grooming you
Yeah.
as a as you move out of engineering college. So 2007ish end, 8 is when the financial crisis hit. So I was allocated. So in TCS or in other companies as well, you join, you train, and then you are allocated projects because based on your preference of cities.
Mhm.
So I got a product division. So TCS is known for service side of things. There are a few products that these service companies do run, and that's the main kind of cash cow for these companies. So there was a financial services product. Now this is like 2008. There's financial crisis, and I entered into a financial service product called TCS Banks. So we're making a product for banks like Standard Chartered, Rabobank, or Bank of Canada. Name any bank.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what was a financial crisis at that time. I said, yeah, it's fine. Like, anyways, next year will be different. And I didn't. That was a good thing because I did not realize the severity or the gloominess of. And now, if you think of, oh, I don't want to do this, I want to do that. At that time, there was lack of information. So first year started in Bangalore, financial services. We used to work 6 days at a time when there was no client for the product, right? So we were working 6 days. So that 6th day we used to get pizzas in the office, which was free. So we were giving another day to get free pizzas and stay in an air conditioned office during the weekends. So I think that's where it started. Then I obviously my interest wasn't there. I loved the corporate side of things. I was studying. I used to read a lot of magazines and business side of things. That was my natural kind of inclination. Then I chose to get a transfer to Gurgaon, which is the northern side. And fortunately, within I think it was a second year in TCS, so I got a transfer. So was there in Gurgaon, northern side of India, for 2 to 3 years. Worked in the business team, and yeah, that was my last 2 years in India before I came to Ireland.
Okay, so before we move to Ireland,
Mm.
how was your upbringing? You have an elder sister,
Yep.
right? So two kids in the family. Talk a bit about your upbringing and your parents.
Yeah, I think upbringing was very normal, like like any other household. So there was nothing. There's no big story as such. There was no kind of exciting thing or a gloomy thing about the
There is
story.
already you were the younger in the family, so there's a lot of
Yeah,
stories
yeah,
with the younger one.
yeah, yeah. So I think I was a pretty boring kid, I would say, right? Like usually you will hear stories about the one who is very mischievous, but I think I was very much like straight person, right? The hardworking person in the family, and if my mom will tell me, sit there until I come back, I'll be sitting there until she comes back. I was that kind of a kid. So I think that I
So
had a
that still applies.
nah, like I'm okay, right? I've been told that that's not the right way to live life. So so I've changed, but I think it was a pretty boring. But this being in Dehradun was fun. Like the things that you see, like it was very much, as I said, education driven. But like living in Dehradun was like, parents used to give us some pocket money to go out.
What?
There was a lot
You
of
used to get a
cafes.
pocket money?
Pocket money, yeah,
Is
yeah,
that what
yeah,
you call right when you say you have a room?
yeah.
So
No, we didn't
yeah.
have a room. But we used to get like 10, 15 rupees a week from my
Yeah.
grandfather. My parents might be giving me something at the end of the month, like 100 rupees, something like that. So there were a lot of cafes in Dehradun. So Dehradun was like, it wasn't a hill station, but it still had the influence of.
Mm.
So it is known for bakeries and nice kind of biscuits and cookies and all that. So we used to go there quite a lot. And my parents, kind of, because I was good at studying, they gave me whatever I asked for, and I didn't know how much of kind of financial buffer they had to give those things. For example, I wanted a bike when I was in 11th because everyone wanted a bike. Yeah, because girls loved guys who were having a bike.
So it's
And
all for the girls.
it was also the girls, right? At that time, right, there was nothing else, right? So it was kind of be good at studies and be
That's
smart and get a
that's
bike.
not the boy. Just say mom sit there and
uh,
boy sit
I
there,
told you, right,
right?
that was after 10th, right? And so it was kind of, so I was number 2 and number 3 ranking. So the top two, one of my friends, so one's name was Saurabh, the other one was Bharat, and we all were kind of good friends. So they both bought a bike, right? Everyone of them. I said, I want a bike, right? Because everyone, like, it's kind of, you have to catch up. And my parents were, no, we're not getting you a bike. It's risky. And that's the 90% of the families would say, you're not getting you a bike. So they said, you can buy a scooter if you want. I said, how can I buy a scooter? So, that was where, but they still paid for that at that time. I can't imagine now, spending that much of money
Yeah.
when they were not, it was a service class
So
family.
you get the bike.
I got a scooter.
Scooter.
But
So
it
you
was
get
nice.
to impress more girls with scooter or less?
It was okay. I think I kind of surrendered to the fact that it's not my time. My time will come later on. So
Fair enough.
yeah,
We'll talk about that down the line.
yeah.
Okay, so when you moved to Ireland, then
Moved to Ireland 2011.
why
2011.
why did you decide to move to Ireland?
So I wanted to. So when I was in Gurgaon and I was in the latter half of my TCS kind of journey. I was always interested in doing masters, MBA. Uh, Again, for no good reason than studying business. Now, I didn't know there were other avenues to study business or to work in a business. There was nothing like startups or MBA was still the uh, sought after career move for not so successful engineers. And I was one of them, right? So I said, yeah, I understand business. I can talk in like I had a good vocabulary of business, and like the TC is the latter half of my journey into Gurgaon. It taught me. So I used to sit with people who were chartered accountants. I used to sit because I was in financial sector. I used to sit with people from graduates from top universities. So I got a lot of learning, and I liked the way they kind of bossed around the engineers to do certain things. And I said, that's fun.
That's
um,
another way of looking into, right? Who's the boss here? Is
yeah,
that the management guys or is that the
it's the
engineer?
other way around
They
now. But that was my. But I understood the domain as well, and I think I started again. We were talking about the competitiveness of the Indian examinations. So I was giving. There was a CAT exam, so everyone gives CAT exam. I knew that I wasn't made for that. The reason was that it was so competitive, and it's good that if you give that first 2 years after graduating from engineering. I was already fourth year into my job, going into the fifth year. And I said, is it worth it? Because by the time you get in, you will have all the younger, less experienced people, and they are at an advantage. And then I realized, there's a word called geographical arbitrage, which is, if you're spending something, let's say if you send money to India and you're buying the same product from India, it's cheaper to buy that in India rather than over here. So that's geographical arbitrage. So in India, like for every person who is getting into a university seat, there would be, let's say, 10,000 other competitors for the same seat, give or
yeah.
take, whatever the ratio is. Over here, it's not like that, right? It's kind of one person, there would be one or two more max, right? Not many people think about it. And if you look at the effort, so there are two factors, right? One is financial thing. If you want to get out of India, how much does it cost, right? I think people think that it's expensive, but it's not that expensive if you do the math and
Yeah.
if you do the right selection. Second is that is it tough to get in? Yes, it's not easy, but it's relatively easier than giving 2 years in competitive exam and just going into a
Yeah.
depressing state all through and giving up. So there was a podcast I was listening to while coming to your house, and they say that you can make a mistake once, you don't make it twice. So I made a mistake while engineering, trying,
Yeah.
going with the coaching classes and all that. I said I'm not doing that. So I gave GMAT. Ireland. Why Ireland? I think I had a very average style score. And again, like engineering, I said, it's get maybe I get a good college after that as well.
Did you put the third point, Nipun?
Which third point?
It's a bit hard to impress girls in India.
Yeah, nah. And see, that was so. I had my girlfriend, my wife, so she was there. We had met already. So again, that wasn't my
Okay, that wasn't
criteria.
all right.
My criteria was to come back to India, graduated, and just continue with their journey. But like yeah, at that time I'd changed my focus
All
to
right.
career.
The ship was sailed by that
The ship
time.
was sailed, right? And I still did not have any bike, so
Yeah.
so there was no point in weaving dreams on.
Exactly.
So I think Ireland, again, to be honest, I didn't know Ireland existed on the map. I knew about Ireland, but
You're
if you
not
ask
you're
me,
not the first
I'm not the
one.
first one, right? But you think that like we are so global in our professional thing, and people don't. Now people talk about Ireland. There's a cricket team. People have traveled. I think there's a lot of UK Ireland traffic, in terms of travel. And then my sister was already there in London, so I said, okay, fine, let's look at UK, right? So my choices were US, UK. I didn't want to go to Australia. It was too. I think it was too far. And then Germany. Then how many countries are English speaking? look at the, so I did some math. I said, what is the ROI? UK
Yeah.
was giving 2 months of post study work visa at that time when I came, 2011, and Ireland was giving 1 year. And Ireland, it was relatively less expensive, 1 year MBA versus doing that in UK or US. So I just did the math. I said it's similar priced as doing
Yeah.
it in India, in the top college in India. And then I gave the entrance, got through Trinity College. Came to know it's a really good college until I, hadn't
Yeah.
applied. I didn't know it. And the same pattern repeated that I had happened with my Mysore college as well. That I didn't know it until I tried to find about it. So I think that's when I chose Ireland.
So if I summarize your decision making process, which is really helpful to people who are considering moving to Ireland or going abroad from India to study, is the first one is the financial element. It is not that a big difference. The studying in India is getting expensive as
Yeah.
well, so probably if foreign studies would be an option. Competitiveness of being getting a seat, again, I think there is less competition outside India.
Yep.
India is a very crowded place. There are still a lot of universities, but not as many as the population. So the competition, as you said, the ratio is
Yeah.
pretty higher. And third part,
I think it's an easy country, right?
is
So
English
it's
speaking country,
English speaking, right?
right?
It's
Yeah,
easy for you to
exactly.
get
You don't
into.
need to learn German.
Yeah,
You don't need to
yeah,
learn any other like
yeah,
French, Swedish.
yeah.
So it's an English speaking
It's an
country.
English
So
speaking.
you can kind of blend in easily.
Yeah,
And the fourth thing is it's a nice, peaceful, small
it's a nice
country,
place. Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I
Yeah.
think people respect you. So the day when I came, so I didn't know it, right? So I think one of the things that I learned is that taking decisions unknowingly sometimes work for better, because I think we spend too much time. Like, you wouldn't know, nowhere in the world you will know any decision is right or wrong
Yes.
until you take it, right?
Yes.
Take any example, anything, buying a house, we spoke about that, right? Buying a car, getting married, right? Anything is like, there are always so many scenarios that can happen. So I think that's something
let's
that
let's take that marriage part out, because if your wife would be listening here, like, what decision you made and you don't know what to do afterwards, right? So
but tell me, right, how much do you know in those
exactly.
few months that you, or years, that you've
Yeah.
met? And I think it's always taking a jump and taking a leap forward in faith,
Yes.
assuming things will work out, and then have your right intention. And I think that's something that was there. I think it was lack of knowing that helped me, rather than knowing too much and
Too.
not taking any action. So I think that worked. And I remember that it came, I think it was 2011, joined in September, and it was just the most pathetic weather. I didn't know it, right? You look at a foreign country from India, saying that it's all nice and bright, and I came in, and you kind of, you don't have money, that much money. You're taking a loan to pay your education fee. You're away from your family, and you're living in a hotel. And at that time, there was no 3G, 2G, or 4G. We had GPRS. I had a BlackBerry phone
Yeah.
in my class, and and I didn't know how to find a house. And we were just searching through streets, looking at for to rent signage
Yeah.
in the cities of Dublin, and that was my first experience, first 5 days in Dublin.
Yeah. What master you studied in Trinity?
I did MBA at
MBA,
Trinity.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. So MBA in Trinity College. So it's now a big program. At that time, it was a smallish program. The class we had a 30 intake class,
Okay.
but that just changed my perspective. And I think it was the first time I came outside of the Indian education system, a factory as they call it, right?
Yeah.
And then it was totally different. It was a case study based. It kind of opened up my mind. There was no everyone passed the examination, right? I knew it that everyone
Yeah.
would pass, but I think it was very, very engaging and
Okay.
very.
So that's kind of, you see the big difference of Indian education and non-Indian, or
I think so, but I don't know, because I didn't do like for like, right? I didn't do an MBA in India, and then I can compare it
but
with
you
MBA.
can compare how the
Style
things
of
are being, exactly, style of
Yeah,
teaching.
yeah, yeah. I think
um,
style of teaching, the class was a good mix. Now, again, the graduate studies could be different because people do not have that much of experience. But I think that, for example, in my class, I was the second youngest or third youngest. So out of 30 people, we had people from 27 years of age up to 52. Just imagine
yeah.
so the amount of experience that you get.
Yeah.
And I think you can only get that. We can talk about masters, because that's where people take a break. And that was a recession time as well. A lot of people had lost their jobs.
Yeah.
So it was 2010, 2011 still, right? I was still
Yeah.
in that curve of coming out of the recession. And some people wanted to have a change. Some people were already at a good position, they took a career break and they wanted to do something more. And there was like, out of 30 people, I think 80% were non-Irish. So that was my like first time like coming out and knowing the world in one class. Like people from, there was three from Japan, one from Korea, and then all two United States.
Yeah,
So it was a nice experience.
that's good. So you graduated,
I graduated 2012.
and where does that take you after?
Yeah, so as I told you, right, so I came to Ireland. I didn't want to live here forever. Again, I'm still here, but
Yeah,
that didn't happen. So
exactly.
don't take decision assuming you have all the data. That point proves again.
Exactly.
So I came. So I'd taken a sabbatical when I came in from my previous employer.
Okay.
The reason I took sabbatical was that, okay, fine, yeah, I'll get a job. Anyways, the job is there. If nothing, at least I'll pay the education debt. But then there was a recession time as well, so I was quite aware of the recession, and I didn't know how to find a job in a country. So I said, I've heard that it's networking based, it's not placement based as they say it in India. So I think I came in. So again, I was kind of totally engrossed in studies in first year. So fortunately, I had a backup job in India. I was offered a job with Enterprise Ireland. So they had this. They hire these graduates from master's program as well, and I was hired for the Mumbai office. So they were paying me really good salary, like unheard of in India, right? And they were giving me, I think, place to stay. I'm not sure about that, but it was a 2-year contract. And then I was supposed to like find another job, and then I got another job offer to the employer that I actually joined, which was Dublin Airport. So Dublin Airport Authority was DAA Group, and they had this retail thing and all that. So that was part of my company project. So I was fortunate, I'll say very fortunate, that I got the job over there, and that kind of eased my way into the jobs scene from the MBA. So I stayed, and the reason why I was hired first of all was um, because I had this Indian roots. We talked about the roots as well. So my company, which was Arient International at that time, they were running the Delhi duty free as a joint venture. They were pitching for the Mumbai airport at that time. So the plan was to open an office in India. That's what I was told, right? And then they did not have any insights of the Indian market outside of Ireland. Like outside of Ireland, they had it. Sorry,
Yeah.
inside of Ireland, in the office, it was all Irish, people in the office. So I came in as the Indian culture ambassador plus
Yeah.
employee, a product, kind of 2-in-1 kind of a thing. And so I think I was at the right time, at the right place at the right time.
But that's very good point, Nipun, that the roots and your background help you in some shape to land your first job in Ireland,
Yeah.
right? And it is not a very common opportunity you get where your language, your origin from the country you're from actually help you to land a job in a foreign
Yeah.
land, right? So
I think it was good. And I think, like, how many times do you see, like, you've worked in Google as well, right? I think now in Google and Facebook, you'll find some language specific jobs because they
Yeah.
need, but I think that's limited to customer support or kind of, people who want to do some analysis on the chatter and everything,
Yeah.
the cultural side of things. But there were not many. Like, if you think of who wants to hire people who, like, how many companies are full, selling into India?
Yeah.
Not many. They're buying software from there, but India is not importing. India is exporting services.
Yes.
India doesn't import that much, in terms of finished products,
Yeah.
apart from China. So I think at that time it was. I think, yeah, I was lucky. I was happy to be from India at that time, right?
Yeah.
It's you don't acknowledge the fact that much, right?
Yes.
And I think now I go back and I can proudly say, sometimes I think one thing was that, yeah, you don't want to say that you are from India, and you think that you want to fit in
Yeah.
more in overseas. But I think that time, that was a kind of learning moment for me, that I was a proud Indian at that time, right? It was kind of, they wanted me
Yes,
um,
because you are from India.
from India.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of, and it was one of the best experiences I got. So I stayed in that company for, I think, 4.5 years around that, and we didn't win the Mumbai contract, so that didn't happen.
So you missed your travels to Mumbai.
I missed it. I still didn't have any bike. But yeah, I was very fortunate to go into an environment where it was so multicultural, and so we were working in the airport retail environment. So it was very much like learning about different cultures, business side of things, but also cultural side of things. And yeah, so that was 4.5 years in working in Dublin Airport, Terminal One building, floor number two. That was where my office was.
So, would you move straight to your startup, or you had jumped to another job in between?
No, I got bored with the airport job because yeah, no matter what, it's a monopolistic kind
Yeah.
of place. What competition does Dublin has, like with London or whatever? So I think I was getting bored. I was getting restless. Then I tried to do something as a startup. Couldn't find the team. My excuses. Couldn't find the right thing to do. Didn't have the right ambition at that time, but it was more of a scratching thing that, oh, I want to do something.
Just testing out the waters.
Testing of the waters. I was trying to find, what do you call it, right? I didn't want to lead it. I wanted to lead it,
Yeah.
but I wanted someone to take the risk alongside me, which was a wrong approach at that time.
Yeah.
I think if I would have taken a leap, someone would have followed me or joined hand with me. At that time, I think I was looking at someone to de-risk my whole model with.
Yeah.
So that didn't happen. So I said, yeah, let's change the job. I was working in retail, so retail was a natural progression for me, marketing and retail. So I joined Brown Thomas and Arnott's. At that time, the acquisition of Arnott's was like the merger was happening. So I joined Brown Thomas and Arnott's. I was there for 5 years with them, and that was a really cool experience, different experience. I never walked into any luxury shop
Yeah.
before that.
It's a lot of retail experience.
Not a retail.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So like, yeah, I was. There was one of my colleagues. He was saying that when his kids ask him, where do you work? He said he'll explain, I work in retail, and kids won't understand anything. And the kid went to school, and he explained, teachers will ask what your father does. He said he sells lipsticks. So that's what I was doing. So I was
Yeah.
selling tobacco, liquor, that was in the airport side of thing,
Yeah.
lipsticks, cosmetics, and sweets.
Yeah.
So all the vices were there in the retail environment. But then we moved to Brown Thomas and Arnott's. That was a different kind of fashion retail.
Yeah.
But that was like very different. I think how two retailers, like grocery is one, airport retail is okay, but then high street
Yeah.
is just totally another world.
And your startup is completely different than any of these things.
Yeah.
Jesus. Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of, I think there's still similarity. So when I was there with Brown Thomas, right, we were kind of looking into merging the systems of the CRM system for Brown Thomas and Arnott's. And we used to talk to Selfridges, which is the owner group company, and other retailers as well. And I think that there's still that itch that was there. But at the same time, I'll tell you how that progression happened. So I was still looking at doing something of my own. And the first thing that I didn't start Smile Genius where I am right now. I said, let's test the waters. So I started doing the consulting, because you think that consulting is easy, right? And I think that's the toughest thing to do, time wise. So I said I learned so much. Like I was very much confident that being in retail for 8 to 9 years, I have learned a lot about how the retail works, what are the building blocks, tech side of things after joining Brown Thomas and Arnott's. As I can help small retailers take that leap into digital as well. And COVID happened, right? So a lot of people were looking into moving into digital. So I was quite right place at the right time again. But then what had happened was that it was a lot of time consuming effort. So I set up a new company called Technique. Again, technology and my name NIK. So I use that Technique name, and I did few projects with retailers, but I think it was a tough time. People were struggling with their own investment and funding. They were getting grants from the government and all that. Then I was still looking to find something that I can do. So my wife is a dentist. I knew the dental side of things. So dentistry is where I am right now. There are two sides of dentistry. One is the pain side, which we all know about, and one is a cosmetic side, which is the cash cow in a way of the new dentist. And I knew the business side of dentistry. I was learning it through my wife. So I think that was a time when I was thinking about it and was ready to take a leap.
Nice. So when you start
I
the
started, I think,
smile,
thinking about Smile Genius I think 2019 or 20. Like it was like that was just thinking, right? It was drawing board and all. We did a lot of these things.
Let's start with the name.
Nah, no,
Where you
there's
come
no
with the
logic.
name Smile Genius?
So it's my co-founder who gave that name. Again, and name was the last thing. I didn't want to. So my previous couple of ventures into startup, right? The wannabe startup phase, right?
Wanna be an entrepreneur?
Wannabe entrepreneur. So I think there was a lot of things that I'd done, right? So many Shopify stores that I'd set up, right? I can't tell you how many were not, didn't sell even a single product. But I stumbled on, a lot of these things, and then I learned that, and then I realized that you spend 80% of time on name and less on execution. And I said, this time I'm gonna just execute and not overthink or do too much research,
Yeah.
because you don't know what you don't know. Yes, you can take a direction, and I said there is always a market for everything, and dental was a huge market, right? And I learned the commercial side of that thing as well. So I thought, yeah, let's do something. And then name, I think my co-founder already had that name, or he was thinking about that name. So Smile is a very common name in dentistry.
Yeah.
90%, and I'm exaggerating, but 90% of the clinics would have some sort of smile
Smile.
in the first words, middle word, or the last word, right? And genius, I don't know why. Again, it's just to attract people.
Yeah.
And dental, I added it just so that it's up on the ranking. It's a most common word. But yeah, there's no kind of actual emotional attachment to the word. It's just kind of, yeah. And if we have to change it, we'll change it. But yeah, it was, there's no history behind the word. If that was you're looking for, there's no
So
history.
let's start with what Smile Genius Dental does, and then talk about the journey.
Yeah, so Smile Genius, so we are into dental SaaS, which is software as a service. The domain as a dentistry is quite wide, and the vertical that we are focusing is the orthodontics side of vertical, which is related to teeth straightening. So if you have gone to a orthodontist before, they would have given you braces, which are the wire or the train tracks as they call it. uh, New technologies have evolved, which are clear braces, Invisalign, or if you're in India, you would have seen Tootsie and others. So what had happened was that so Invisalign was the market leader. They had patents and everything. They had 100% of market share. 2017, they ran out of their patents. And then everyone started copying their production and buying the same printers, printing the same material. So the material science, the production, and the final product was very similar to the original Invisalign. So that's 2017. So you saw a lot of these startups, a lot of manufacturers, printing labs, which is a manufacturer term for dental. They started coming up. They did not have technology. They did not have the case management or the CRM, let's call it in a general sense. So what we thought was that if we can build something that these new businesses that are coming up, they can use as a product, pay us a subscription, and then rather than thinking about software development, they should think about operations, manufacturing, sales. That's it, right? So that was where the idea came about. And yeah, so we started that in 2020, 2021 ish.
So you give them a SaaS product,
Yeah.
a platform where they can manage their case of Invisaligners.
Yeah, so all the brand, any brand, it's
So
brand
anything-
agnostic.
yeah, brand
It's brand
agnostic,
agnostic.
yeah.
So it has two parts to the product. One is your case management. Case management is in today's world. So dentists would be exposed to two types of softwares. One is what their clinic tells them, which is a practice management software, which is when you go to a reception, right? They will create an appointment for you or
Yeah.
something that happens in a PMS or a practice management. The other is what the lab tells you to do, which is the manufacturer.
Yeah.
So we are on the lab side of things, and labs dictate which software to use. So
Basically, how a dentist would take the X-rays and the design, and they send it to lab
Correct.
to create
treatment plan.
the product,
Yeah.
and then come. So you are on the lab and the manufacturing part of the CRM.
Yeah. So there are two parts to the product. That is one, which is in a simple way. It's a case manager ordering system between a lab and a clinic.
Yeah.
Then we enrich that data with the patient monitoring. So what happens in orthodontic cases is that not your typical dental cases, which are very transactional. So you go to a clinic, you see a dentist, they do a tooth extraction, they will give you painkillers, off you go, right? There's no follow-up needed because your body heals by itself. these treatments last for 8, 9, 12, 18 months. So there's a regular check-in with the dentist or an orthodontist that's needed. So there's an engagement piece that's
Yeah.
there with the patient. And not every visit has to be your in-clinic visit. There are a lot of visits that could be done virtually,
Mhm.
or the patient could be triggered to do certain things remotely as well. So we build that remote monitoring app that comes along with the case management portal that enriches the data that the dentist is seeing, which is not just the operational data, but they're also
Yeah.
seeing the clinical data on top of that.
Now I get it. It's the long journey you are capturing. It's not that one particular incident
Correct.
that I have a root canal, take it out, job done.
Yeah.
It's that, as you said, right, 18 to 24 months of journey, and you need to monitor the progress. The dentist and other people have to make some changes based on how progress. So
Yeah.
it's the
So
entire
everything
journey.
end to end
Yeah,
workflow.
end to end.
Now, if you think of what people were doing before that, right? So it depends. And I'll tell you the weirdest example, right? So we talk to dentists and lab people and practitioners all day. That's part of our job. Uh, in India, I've seen people using WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is the most commonly used software product to communicate with your labs and with your patients as well. Now, WhatsApp is not, it's not HIPAA compliant or GDPR compliant to do everything. You're not supposed to share because it could be forwarded elsewhere. Emails, Excel sheets, Google Drives, text messages, phone calls. So it was very much fragmented.
Yeah.
In UK, you would assume that it's much more sophisticated, but yeah, it's relatively more, but it's not. There are lab people that we have spoken to, some of our clients. Dentists would give them in a tissue paper impression. So if they're not
Yeah.
using digital, physical impression, the mold of your teeth, and in the tissue there would be a note saying please align. Align means straighten your teeth,
Yeah.
and that's your prescription. So I'll tell you all the weird examples, but again, that was the whole standardization, giving you a product that you don't have to think about building yourself, and you pay as you go, like kind of subscription basis. You don't have to think about it, and you get all the upgrades. So again, that was the intent, and then we found a nice gap. So I think that's where we are. We're looking into UK, US. We have some early traction, so hopefully there's enough market out there.
So summarize your journey so far now, Nipun. Where you started. I get your idea, what you're trying to do. Where you started and where you are at this point.
I started during COVID time, as I told you, right? So I was taking pandemic payments, right? Because then they were giving it, so I was not doing anything, anyways. So I started my journey in those days when it was all bootstrapped. So today we have taken pre-seed, we have taken seed round. We're planning to take seed round. We are That's the investment side of things. We will be with 1,000 clinics in UK by the end of this year.
Very good.
So although we sell to the labs, but through the labs, we are making the dentist use our software. So by the end of this year, we would have onboarded 1,000 clinics. If I want to give you a kind of a figure of what 1,000 means, there are 40,000 dentists in around that, give or take, right, in UK. So by the end of the year, we'll be in 1,000 clinics. So by next year, hopefully, we can double that. So that would be around 5% of the market. This is when we started with only one clinic in Ireland that was using a
How
software.
is it in Irish market? You talk about the UK numbers. Are you still growing as quickly in Irish market or
Ireland is slightly different. So
okay?
we didn't focus too much into on Ireland because we were going through the lab network, and in
Got it.
Ireland you do not have those many labs. It's usually the UK or the European labs. So we kind of found where the labs were. So either they were in UK or in Germany, Poland, those kind of Eastern European countries as
Yeah.
well. So I think that's where we focus. So Ireland was there because my co-founder has a clinic in Ireland. So we tested our product in Ireland. So we have two clients in Ireland, but no lab as a big customer
So
in
your
Ireland.
go-to market strategy is to work with the labs,
Yeah.
and then from there you build your.
See, it makes sense, right? So I tried selling our product to dentists, right? So there are two problems with dentists. First of all, not everyone enjoys technology or coming on a Zoom call,
Yeah.
right? Secondly, they're busy in surgeries, right? They don't have access to, they don't have the luxury of sitting in front of a computer, going for a cup of tea whenever they want, and
Yeah.
take a call when they want. They don't have that choice. So in the evenings when they come back, they hardly want to get out to a sales call. So I knew that dentist was a hard sell. Labs, on an average, work with multiple clinics, thousand, like 500 to 1,000 at times. So by working with labs, you are exposed to an exponential size of clinics, which you don't have to knock the doors individually. So that was
Yes.
kind of, yeah, we
No,
stumbled
that's
into that.
that's very good strategy, right? Where you understand being in that space, you understand how do you basically go and capture some of that market which is out there, 40,000, but what is the route where you can take
Mhm.
going to those individual 40,000 wouldn't make sense.
Yep.
Who is sitting at one level up at the labs? Let's talk to labs, and lab will push that product down to the
Yeah. Yeah.
dentist. Absolutely.
So we stumbled into that. I think it was more learning, and I'll say that again. I think there is a pattern to what we are talking about. I wouldn't have known it 3 years ago, right? My whole intent was to sell it to dentists, but you can't sell it to dentists because dentists don't want to hear from you. They want to hear from the labs. So I think it just
But
stumbled
you've
into that.
gone through that journey.
Yeah.
You talk to the dentist, you understand how they are, how they operate. Then you understand the whole ecosystem of there's the lab part, there's the dentist part, and how they are
Yeah.
interconnected.
Yeah.
You understand the process, how the order moves between patient, the dentist, and the lab. And also, absolutely, I mean, as you said, right, it took nearly 3 years to get
Yeah.
to where it is.
Yeah.
So
And I think, see, my wife is a dentist, right? And most of the thing that I know today, or the reason, and I think I should say that to the camera, that the reason I was able to do a startup was because of her, right? There has to be some support, right? I
yes.
wasn't born into Bill Gates' family that, it is, I can do whatever I want, right? It's a tough thing.
It is.
And then being in a foreign country, like it was like, it's difficult. It's not your hometown. You don't have your family to back you up. You
Yeah.
don't living, you have, and then, it was difficult. So you need someone to work to pay the bills or to have that cushion so that you can on go onto your journey. So I think she helped me quite a lot. And I don't say that enough, but I think she had been influential in what Smile Genius is today, being the silent partner and the supporter behind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wives are always there.
Say, hey,
Always.
yeah,
Absolutely.
we got our brownie points today.
Yes, absolutely. Both of us.
Yeah.
Great. So, Nipun, is your wife work still outside your Smile Genius, or is she have plans to
I'm,
come
I'm
with you?
trying to bring her more and more. Again, if you think about what I said, dentists hate being in front of computers,
Yeah.
right? And the irony of the product is that we are selling it to the dentist to be in front of the computers to submit a case,
Yeah.
right? So that's more like a contradictory world in which
Yeah.
we live in. She likes clinical work. I think eventually she might. I think she's waiting so that we can afford to pay her, and she's very expensive. So I'm trying to make sure we make enough money to bring her on
Yeah.
as a full
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
So, you have learned a lot over the 3 years, right? You've been through new frontiers, basically start from the bottom and get to where you are. You raise the funds, you're planning to raise more. For first time founders, you were one few years ago. What advice would you give it to them from your personal experience?
I think for the first time founders, it's difficult. It's difficult in a way that you don't know everything, right? So now I used to think about, like, why is it so different for first time versus second time founders? Why investors trust more the serial entrepreneurs, as they say, right, versus the first time? Although the first time may have the best product, because the product is nothing, right? It's like I didn't. We were trying to pitch to dentists. If we wouldn't have pivoted to labs, Smile Genius would have failed in year one. So I think that you don't know what you don't know until you get into the trenches and you start learning and talking to people. As I say, there's a book called Lean Startup, right? You
Yeah.
have to be outside of your office. That's when you build a startup. So I think we don't realize that. I think a lot of first time founders, which was me as well, we spend a lot of time researching, trying to make our business plan perfect before building something. I think it's the reverse, right? It's like spend all the time in building the first product immediately, like get an MVP out, test it in the market. 99% chances your product would change from what you have built and what you are envisioning, right? No one knows how the dynamics of the market will react to the product. It could lead to something else. Be persistent of changing. Expect change. So I think you shouldn't be in love with the product. I think first time we get in like engineers, we make product because we can make it, right? It's not about there's a market there, or where people love it. Oh, I don't want to. And if you're artistic, you want to show the perfect product, and that's also wrong, right? So I think we don't learn it for the first time. It's kind of when you do it once, now you enter into, yet that nothing is permanent, so you should be in love with the solution and the problem, not with the product. But I think we don't learn it in the first go, and I think that's where my advice would be that, first of all, do it. I think entrepreneurship is fun. It's good. It's interesting. It's There's a lot of satisfaction at the end of the day that you get, and it's a well-rounded experience that you will never get in any job or any like place or whatever rank you hold in your company. You will never get that experience, not even a fraction of that experience what you'll get spending 1 year in your own startup.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'll like just do it and then pivot and improvise from there.
I'm going to ask you a controversial question.
Yeah.
And usually, what I tell is either you do an MBA or run your startup for a year, you will learn more from a startup.
Yeah.
You have done MBA, you have done the
On
startup.
list. Yeah.
So, what is your thoughts on MBA versus doing a startup?
Okay. I'll share a podcast with you, which you should add to the link.
Okay.
It's in Hindi, but I think some people will watch it. It talked about the same thing. I think that see MBA. Why I wanted to do an MBA, because at that time I wanted to learn more about business, what they teach you in MBA and what they don't teach you in MBA. Now Trinity was quite good because they had this focus on entrepreneurship. I think you learn presentation skills, soft skills. Engineers are not good at presentation. Sorry, engineers are very much like they want to be in their cubicle in silos and come back to me after a month when I've built it. Don't disturb me, don't email me, don't ring me, don't WhatsApp me, talk to me after 1 month. That's the kind of engineers. But now the world has changed, right? And I think with business, with like getting that education was kind of very helpful for me. And I think I was biased because that was my first time outside of the Indian culture as well, so I looked at it from that side of things. If I would I do that again, I think maybe not. The reason being because not because the MBA wasn't good. The reason being that things have moved so fast, right? If you ask me how many times would I go back to my classes and in the lectures and the material that was shared, I think rarely. In the first year I've done it, but I think if you think of as a startup founder, I know the building blocks. So what I tell people is that see MBA as a table of contents. It's not a full book that you have learned, but you know where to find the answers to,
Yes.
right? But I think MBA is made more for people uh, who want to manage people and lead organizations, not for startups. Startup is a different school altogether, and you don't need to be an MBA to start a startup. That's my
Yeah.
advice. Yeah.
Great. And what's the future of Smile Genius now?
Yeah, future is that we will go hard in UK side of market. So I think the focus is to get enough traction in the market, make sure that all the manufacturers and the labs know about Smile Genius. So I think that's the one. US is where we are focusing on because that's where the money is. So following the trail. So I think US is a big market for us. If we had 40,000 dentists in UK, there are 200 plus thousand 20,000 plus in US alone. So it's a massive market, right? So that's one. So our focus is to kind of improve the product, expand into other verticals within dentistry, of course, and to expand geographically into US as well. So I think that would be more of a high level plan. But I think hopefully next year would be exciting for us.
And my last question, what do you think of the Indian market? You come from India.
Yeah. So India, we have worked with Indian companies. I would love to, like, I'm emotional about India. I would love to. There's massive market. So many dentists, right? They say that if you throw a stone, you'll either hit a dentist or an engineer. But I think the problem with India is that first of all, I'm living afar, right? So I don't have any local presence there. So you need to travel, meet people, build trust network. I think India is there. We are talking to a few companies in India. India is a difficult market, right? When it comes to software, the reason being that the there's so much of software that exists. There is the expectation that everything is cheap, not cheap quality wise, but price wise, right? You don't have to spend too much, and most of the companies think that they can get it done by paying something to someone in a week's time. So I think there is, when it comes to software, I think it's better to delay that until we have reached an economy of scale where we can afford to sell it at a lower cost in India. Emotionally, I would love to sell it. There's a massive market opportunity, like nothing compared to what you see in UK and Ireland. But the problem is that I think there's a lot of expectation, and people don't want to pay, which we know, right?
Yeah.
So I think that becomes tricky for our break even when it comes to, right. So I think once we've reached a scale in UK, US,
Yes.
I think that's the time when we can start offering that service at a lower cost in India and at least sustain ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we
You
have
could
delayed.
be a Ryanair of India.
We can be the Ryanair of India. Yeah, yeah, but I think that's the vision, right? Like
Right.
we want Smile Genius to be, if you think of dentistry, we should touch each and every dental office globally. Like there should be an instance of Smile Genius software giving an application on top of whatever software they're using. So there has to be that we should touch each and every dentist and dental offices. And you talked about India. One of the things that I think about is the uh, hiring from India, right? There's so many dentists in India, and these dentists, we talked about roots and routes, they are in UK, Ireland. They can't practice dentistry on the clinical side of things,
Yeah.
but there are good people who can speak, who can hire, who can train, who
Yeah.
can educate other dentists. So I think that's where I'm leaning on to. If I'm not able to expand into India, at least what I feel is that, like, not just India, but I think from Pakistan, from
Yeah.
Brazil, there's so many dentists who are working like at the minimum wage in Ireland and UK. At least if we can create good employment, which is flexible for them, I think that would be my proxy of not entering into India, but also offering service to
Yes.
the Indians. Yeah.
Yes. No, it's really good vision. And with that, we're going to end this conversation. But best wishes with Smile Genius, and I'm gonna keep following you on LinkedIn. Keep the updates coming, and thank you for your time this evening.
Cool. No, thanks, Kamal, for all your time. I think thanks for inviting me. You have a nice, lovely house. There was a nice travel, and I think we enjoyed a meal together. It's always good to meet in person. So,
Yeah.
no, thanks for calling me and for this podcast.
Great. Thank you.